The CEO's grandson told me my Rolodex was a museum piece. It held the personal numbers of 14 defense procurement officers worth $890 million in contracts. He said it to my face, sitting behind a glass desk with nothing on it but a MacBook Pro and a protein shake. 25 years old. Harvard MBA, still warm in the frame on his wall. And he looked at me like I was a filing cabinet someone forgot to throw out during the last office renovation. But here's what Tyler Whitfield didn't know. That Rolodex wasn't a museum piece. It was a detonator. My name is Clifford Sweeney. People call me Cliff. I'm 53 years old, and I spent 24 years at Ridgemont Defense Solutions, building something that kid couldn't even spell. Before that, I spent 12 years in the United States Navy. NAVSUP, Naval Supply Systems Command. Lieutenant Commander. By the time I walked off my last ship in 2001, I learned logistics the way you're supposed to learn it. Not in a lecture hall, not on a simulation. On the water, in real time, with real consequences if you got the numbers wrong. I joined Ridgemont when I was 29, fresh out of the Navy, still had the haircut, still had the posture. Harold Whitfield hired me himself, shook my hand in his oak-paneled office that smelled like old leather and Arturo Fuente cigars, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Cliff, I don't need another salesman. I need someone the Pentagon trusts." That was the job. That was always the job. 24 years I did it. I built every major defense relationship Ridgemont had, not with software, not with dashboards, with phone calls at 6 a.m., with flights to D.C. on 4 hours' notice, with sitting across the table from procurement officers who'd known me since I was running supply chains out of Norfolk, looking them in the eye and saying, "I'm telling you this vendor is clean because I vetted him myself." They believed me, not because of Ridgemont, because of me. You want to know what sacrifice looks like at a company like that? I'll tell you. October 3rd, 2014. Jackson's 10th birthday. My son. Martha had made a cake, chocolate with blue frosting, because Jackson was going through his phase where everything had to be Aggies maroon or navy blue. I was supposed to be home by 4. At 2:47 p.m., I got a call from a Pentagon procurement officer named General Cook. There was a compliance flag on a $120 million logistics contract. If someone didn't walk the audit team through the vetting chain by close of business the next day, Ridgemont would lose the contract and face a formal review. I drove to the airport instead of home. Martha put the phone on speaker so Jackson could hear me sing Happy Birthday from the back seat of a yellow cab on the GW Parkway. I could hear the other kids in the background. I could hear my son say, "It's okay, Dad." That was the last birthday before Martha got the diagnosis. Breast cancer. Stage 3. She fought for 2 years. She was the toughest person I ever knew. Tougher than any officer I served under. And she died on a Tuesday in April with me holding her hand and Jackson sitting in the hallway because he was 17 and didn't know what to do with his hands. That was 4 years ago. After Martha died, the job was all I had, besides Jackson. And Jackson was at Texas A&M, Corps of Cadets, building his own life the way he should. So I poured everything into Ridgemont. Every contact, every relationship, every 5 a.m. call, and every weekend flight. I knew the name of General Cook's granddaughter. I knew Commander Brooks preferred to meet at the diner on K Street because his office gave him migraines from the fluorescent lights. I knew that 14 procurement officers across the Department of Defense trusted exactly one person at Ridgemont Defense Solutions to vet a supply chain. Me. $890 million in active contracts. Every single one of them ran through my desk. But here's the part nobody at Ridgemont understood. 3 years before Tyler Whitfield ever set foot in that building, I built something on my own time. Nights, weekends, sitting at my kitchen table with Rex asleep at my feet and a vending machine coffee going cold beside my laptop. I called it the Sweeney Protocol. a proprietary logistics vetting system I designed using frameworks I'd developed during my Navy years. Risk assessment algorithms for defense supply chains, vendor reliability matrices, security clearance cross-referencing. Things I'd been doing in my head for decades, finally put into a system. I built it on my personal laptop, on my personal time, using data and methodology from my years at NavSup, years before I ever heard the name Ridgemont. And I never assigned it to the company. That wasn't an accident. My buddy Bob Ellis told me to protect it. Bob and I served together. He was JAG, turned IP attorney after he got out. Sharp as a scalpel and twice as precise. I called him one night, 3 years ago, sitting on my back deck with 3 fingers of Blanton's while Rex chewed on a tennis ball. Bob, I built something. Company's been using my methodology for years, but I formalized it, put it in a system. Did you build it on their equipment? My laptop. My time. Did you sign an IP assignment clause? I signed an employment agreement in 2001. Standard language. Covers inventions made with company resources during company time. Then file it under your own name. Provisional patent. Copyright registration. You can always assign it later if they ask. They never asked. Patent number 8,472,639. United States Patent and Trademark Office. Filed under Clifford A. Sweeney. The algorithm that every single one of Ridgemont's defense contracts depended on for supply chain risk assessment. Mine. And there was something else Bob flagged. Something buried in those 14 defense contracts that I'd helped negotiate over the years. Section 8C. The Key Personnel Clause. Standard language in government procurement, but most corporate executives never read it because they assume people are replaceable. Section 8C stated that the government's security clearance authorization for each specific logistics chain was tied to the individual vetting officer, not the company, the individual. And if that key personnel was removed without a minimum of 90 days of interpersonal transition, the contracts became voidable at the government's discretion. Every single one of those 14 contracts had my name in Section 8C. Bob read it out loud to me over the phone and then went quiet for about 5 seconds. Cliff, do you understand what this means? If they fire you, or if you leave without a 90-day handoff, the Pentagon can void every one of these contracts. I understand perfectly. That's $890 million in active revenue. I know the number, Bob. He was quiet again. Then he laughed. That low, dry Navy laugh. Just keep your powder dry, Cliff. And for God's sake, don't let anyone assign that patent. I didn't. 6 months ago, Tyler Whitfield graduated from Harvard Business School. 3 weeks later, Harold named him Vice President of Digital Transformation at Ridgemont Defense Solutions. 25 years old. No clearance, no contracts, no relationships. But he had a title, a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, and the last name on the building. The first time I met him, he was standing in the conference room that smelled like old coffee and recycled air, presenting to the senior team. Slides with gradient backgrounds, buzzwords stacked like cordwood, optimization, scalable client interfacing, agile procurement pipelines. We need to pivot from legacy relationship management to a cloud-based, AI-driven CRM platform. Project Aegis. $12 million implementation. This is the future. He clicked to a slide that had my department's name on it with a red line through it. Strategic accounts is running on handshakes and phone calls. That's not scalable. That's not auditable. That's a single point of failure. He looked right at me when he said it. Sarah Miller was sitting next to me. She was 42, my protege, best account manager I ever trained. She put her pen down and stared at the table. She had a mortgage and 2 kids in school. She wasn't going to say a word. Nobody was. I just sat there, adjusted my tie, watched him click through his slides. $12 million to replace a system that worked because of trust with a system that worked because of algorithms. If you've ever had a boss or been in a situation like this, hit that like button and subscribe. 2 weeks later, I was walking past Harold's office. The mahogany door was cracked open. Hallway carried sound better than people realized. I heard Tyler's voice first. Bright, confident. The kind of confident that comes from never being told no. Cliff's a legacy drag. He's got these guys on speed dial like it's 1995. We need an agile, AI-driven interface. He'll fall in line once he sees the bonus structure change. Then Harold. Quieter, older, the voice of a man who used to know better. He's been here 24 years, Tyler. Exactly. That's the problem. He's not going to adapt. But he's got a mortgage and a kid in college. He needs this job. He'll adjust. I stood in that hallway for 9 seconds. I know because I counted them. Martha was dead. The mortgage was paid off. Jackson's tuition was covered by the GI Bill transfer and a trust Martha and I set up before she got sick. I didn't need a thing from Ridgemont Defense Solutions. That's when something shifted in me. Not broke. Shifted. Like a scope clicking into focus. Tuesday, October 14th, 3 p.m. Tyler called me into his glass-walled office, the one with nothing on the desk but the MacBook and a protein shake. He didn't stand up, didn't shake my hand. He gestured at the chair across from him like he was directing traffic. Cliff, I'll get right to it. We're restructuring strategic accounts under the Project Aegis framework. Your role as director is being eliminated. We're offering a voluntary separation package, 60 days salary, standard benefits extension. He slid a folder across the glass desk. I could see my name printed on the tab. Your legacy hardware, Cliff. We're pivoting to a scalable, cloud-based future where handshakes don't exist. I looked at the folder. I looked at him. 25 years old. Designer haircut, perfectly styled. Perfect teeth. Manicured fingers resting on the edge of that MacBook like it was a throne. Behind him, through the glass wall, I could see Sarah Miller at her desk. She was watching. She looked like she was going to be sick. I opened the folder, read every page. Voluntary resignation, not termination for cause, which meant the non-compete clause in my original employment agreement didn't trigger. Tyler didn't know that. His legal team probably didn't either, because if they had, they never would have structured it this way. I picked up the pen. A standard company ballpoint. Not the silver one Harold gave me 15 years ago. That one was already in my briefcase. I signed every page. I understand perfectly. I'll have my desk cleared by 5. Tyler blinked. Just once. He'd been ready for an argument. Ready for begging. Ready for the desperate middle-aged man with the mortgage and the kid in college to plead for his job. That's good. Professional. I respect that. Sure. I stood up. I placed my company phone on his glass desk. I picked up my briefcase. The leather one. Old. Worn. With brass clasps that still worked because I maintained them the way the Navy taught me to maintain everything. I walked out through the open floor plan, past 24 years of my life, past Sarah, who had tears in her eyes and her jaw locked tight, past the conference room where I'd closed my first defense contract in 2002, past the break room that still had my coffee mug in the cabinet, the one Jackson made in 4th grade with the lopsided handle. I left it there. As I reached the elevator bank, I heard Tyler's voice behind me, not talking to me, talking to his assistant, loud enough to carry, meant to carry. The museum is officially closed. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. I pressed the button for the parking garage. The doors closed. Click. If you've ever had a boss who looked at your experience and called it a liability, hit that like button and subscribe. I drove home. Took the long way. Not because I was upset, because I wanted to think clearly, and I think best when I'm driving and the road is straight and quiet. Rex met me at the door. 70 pounds of black Labrador who knew something had changed the second I walked in at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday instead of 7:30 p.m. like every other day for the last 24 years. He didn't bark. He just sat down and looked at me with his head tilted. Yeah, buddy, different day. I dropped my briefcase on the kitchen table, unclasped the brass latches, took out the silver pen Harold gave me 15 years ago, and set it on the counter. Then I opened my personal laptop and pulled up a folder I'd organized 3 years earlier. Every document Bob Ellis and I had prepared. The provisional patent filing, the copyright registration, the certified return receipt letters, pre-addressed, pre-stamped, waiting in a manila envelope in the bottom drawer of my desk at home. Not the desk at Ridgemont, the desk in my study. The one that smelled like old leather and Martha's lavender hand cream that I still hadn't moved from the top drawer because some things you don't move. I poured 3 fingers of Blanton's, the good stuff, not the daily drinker. I took it out to the back deck. Rex followed me and dropped his tennis ball at my feet, then lay down beside my chair when I didn't throw it. I sat there for a while, watched the sun go down over the yard Martha and I had landscaped together the year before she got sick. The October air had that dry, cool bite to it. Football weather, she would have called it. At 6:15 p.m., I picked up my personal phone. I had 11 text messages, 8 from colleagues, 2 from Sarah Miller, 1 from Harold Whitfield's direct line. I turned the phone off, not silent, off. That was the beginning of what Bob later called the silence doctrine. I didn't argue. I didn't send a company-wide email. I didn't call Harold to appeal. I didn't post anything on LinkedIn about new chapters or exciting opportunities. I didn't threaten. I didn't hint. I just stopped existing for Ridgemont Defense Solutions. The next morning, Wednesday, October 15th, I drove to the post office at 8:02 a.m. I handed the clerk a certified return receipt envelope addressed to the Board of Directors of Ridgemont Defense Solutions. Inside was a single-page letter drafted by Robert Ellis, Esquire, on his firm's letterhead. It read, "This letter serves as formal notification that Clifford A. Sweeney hereby withdraws the non-exclusive, non-transferable license previously extended to Ridgemont Defense Solutions for the use of the proprietary logistics vetting system known as the Sweeney Protocol, registered under U.S. Patent Application Number 8, 472, 639, and Copyright Registration TXU 2198441. This withdrawal is effective immediately upon receipt. Any continued use of said intellectual property constitutes infringement under 35 U.S.C. Section 271 and 17 U.S.C. Section 501. The clerk stamped it. I got my receipt. I folded it into my wallet behind Jackson's school photo. Then I went home, made black coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened a fresh legal pad, and wrote 2 words at the top: Sweeney Strategic LLC. Bob filed the incorporation papers that afternoon. State of Texas. Single member LLC. I was the sole owner, sole operator, and the only employee. I didn't make a single phone call to any of my 14 procurement officers. Not one. Bob had been very clear about that. Don't reach out, Cliff. Don't even hint. Let the contracts speak for themselves. Let Section 8C do the work. So I waited. I took Rex for long walks. I drove to College Station and watched Jackson's drill practice. I sat in the stands and just watched my son march. Didn't check my phone. Didn't think about Ridgemont. First time in 24 years I watched my boy do something without a clock ticking in the back of my head. Jackson noticed. We were sitting at a barbecue place near campus. He had brisket. I had pulled pork and a sweet tea. He put his fork down and looked at me. "Dad, you seem different this week. Less stressed. Like you're actually here when you're here. I'm working on that. Are you going to keep coming to my stuff?" "Every single one, Jack." He He nodded, went back to his brisket, didn't push it. He's like his mother that way. Knows when the answer is enough. 6 weeks. 42 days. That's how long the fuse was. During those 42 days, Tyler Whitfield did exactly what I expected him to do. He rolled out Project Aegis across all 14 defense accounts. $12 million of AI-driven CRM, replacing 24 years of personal relationships. He posted about it on LinkedIn. I know because Sarah sent me a screenshot. His post read, "Proud to lead Ridgemont's digital transformation. Sometimes tough decisions create the cleanest outcomes. The future is agile. Hashtag Project Aegis. Hashtag leadership. Hashtag defense tech." 237 likes. 14 comments. One from Harold that just said, "Proud of you, son." Sarah's text with the screenshot said only, "I'm so sorry, Cliff." I didn't respond. On day 29, General Cook's office attempted to run a standard quarterly compliance review on the Ridgemont logistics contracts. This is routine. Every 90 days, the Pentagon verifies that the vetting protocols on defense supply chains meet current DoD security standards. For 24 years, that review consisted of General Cook's aide calling me directly, me walking them through the Sweeney Protocol assessment, and a signed certification going back to the Pentagon within 48 hours. On day 29, General Cook's aide pinged Project Aegis. The system sent an automated response. General Cook's office called Ridgemont's main line. They were transferred to Tyler Whitfield's assistant, then to a junior account manager who had been on the job for 3 weeks, then to a help desk for the CRM vendor. Nobody could explain the vetting algorithm. Nobody could walk through the risk assessment matrices. Nobody could answer the question that General Cook's aide had been trained to ask: who personally certified this supply chain? Because the answer was me, and I was on my back deck throwing a tennis ball for Rex. On day 34, Commander Brooks requested an in-person meeting regarding the renewal status of a $210 million naval logistics contract. He didn't call Ridgemont. He called the direct number he'd had for me for 19 years. The number was disconnected. I'd canceled my old personal line and gotten a new one. Only Bob, Jackson, and Sarah had it. Commander Brooks called Ridgemont's corporate office. He was routed through Project Aegis. He got a chatbot. A United States Navy commander with procurement authority over $210 million in defense logistics contracts got a chatbot. On day 38, the Department of Defense Office of Procurement issued a formal inquiry to Ridgemont Defense Solutions regarding the status of key personnel on 14 active contracts. They cited Section 8C. They wanted written confirmation of the interpersonal transition plan for Clifford A. Sweeney's replacement. There was no transition plan. There was no replacement. There was no Clifford A. Sweeney. On day 42, a Tuesday morning, the first formal notice of noncompliance arrived at Ridgemont's legal department. Certified mail, return receipt, from the Pentagon's contracting office. It cited Section 8C of 3 separate contracts, valued at a combined $340 million. It stated that the removal of designated key personnel without the required 90-day interpersonal transition constituted a material breach. The government was exercising its discretionary right to initiate contract termination review. 3 contracts, $340 million, gone in a single envelope. Mark Taylor, Ridgemont's general counsel, read the notice at 9:14 a.m. I know the exact time because of what happened next. At 9:16 a.m., Mark Taylor called Tyler Whitfield's office. Tyler didn't answer. He was in a meeting about Q1 scalability targets. At 9:22 a.m., Mark Taylor walked to Tyler's glass-walled conference room and opened the door without knocking. His face was the color of old newspaper. "We have a situation." Tyler looked up from his MacBook, annoyed. "Mark, I'm in the middle of something. Can it wait?" "The Pentagon isn't pinging the portal, Tyler. They're filing breach of contract notices." Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. Mark set the envelope on the glass table. "Section 8C. Key personnel clause. Cliff Sweeney was the named vetting officer on every single one of these contracts. You removed him without a 90-day transition plan. The government is voiding them. That's a clerical error. We can just assign someone else and... It's not a clerical error. It's federal procurement law. And there's something else. Mark opened a second folder. Inside was the certified return receipt letter, the one I'd mailed on October 15th. The vetting algorithm we've been running through every compliance check for the last decade. The Sweeney Protocol. We don't own it. It's registered under Cliff's personal patent. Number 8,472,639. He formally revoked our license to use it the day after he left. Tyler stared at the letter. The color drained from his face the way water drains from a sink. Slow at first, then all at once. That can't be right. I've verified it with the USPTO. His filing predates any work product agreement we have on record. He built it on his own time, on his own equipment, using methodology from his naval service. It's his. Tyler's phone started buzzing. Then it didn't stop. 1 call. 2. 5. His assistant appeared in the doorway, holding a tablet with both hands like it might bite her. Mr. Whitfield, I have General Cook's office on line 1, Commander Brooks on line 2, and the DOD Inspector General's office is requesting a formal response by end of business Friday. 47 missed calls by noon. I know because Sarah texted me the number that evening. Just the number. Nothing else. 47. Somewhere in Austin, Texas, I was sitting on my back deck with Rex at my feet and a glass of Blanton's catching the late afternoon light. My new phone sat on the arm of my chair. It buzzed once. A text from Bob Ellis. They found the patent filing. Mark Taylor just called my office looking for you. Want me to answer? I looked at that text for a long time. Took a sip of bourbon. Felt the burn settle. I typed 2 letters. No. Then I turned the phone off. Click. The phone stayed off for 3 days. Not because I was hiding, because I was letting the math do what math does. Compound. Every hour I didn't answer was another hour Mark Taylor spent reading contract language he should have read 6 months ago. Every day I stayed silent was another day. The Pentagon's clock ticked toward termination review on contracts that Ridgemont couldn't service without me and couldn't explain without my algorithm. Bob called it strategic patience. The Navy called it operational security. I called it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Thursday evening, October 23rd, I turned my phone back on. 14 voicemails. 9 from Mark Taylor's direct line. 3 from Harold Whitfield's personal cell. 1 from Sarah. 1 from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Ridgemont's outside litigation counsel. I listened to Mark Taylor's first message, timed at 4:47 p.m. on Wednesday. Cliff, this is Mark Taylor. I need to speak with you urgently regarding the status of several active procurement contracts and an intellectual property matter that has come to our attention. Please return this call at your earliest convenience. Professional. Controlled. The voice of a man holding a cracked dam together with both hands. I listened to his last message, timed at 11:02 a.m. on Thursday. Cliff, I understand if you're not inclined to speak with us right now. I want you to know that the Board of Directors has requested a formal consultation. We would like to invite you to a meeting at Ridgemont headquarters at your earliest availability. Please, call me back. Please. That was the word that told me everything. General counsels at defense contractors don't say please. Not to former employees. Not to anyone. Unless the building is on fire and the former employee is holding the only extinguisher. I called Bob. They want a meeting. I know. Mark Taylor called me 4 times. I answered the 3rd one. What did you tell him? That you were my client, that any communication goes through my office, and that you'd be available for a consultation on Monday, October 27th at 10 a.m., not before. That gives them the weekend to sit with it. Exactly. Smart bastard. I spent that weekend in College Station. Watched Jackson's football game on Saturday. Corps of Cadets had a section in the stands, and my boy was right there in his uniform, standing straight, yelling his head off when the Aggies scored. I sat 3 rows behind him. He didn't know I was there until halftime, when he turned around for a hot dog and saw me. He grinned. Just grinned. Didn't wave. Didn't shout. Just that grin. Martha's grin. I nodded. That was enough. Sunday evening, I sat at the kitchen table with Rex at my feet and organized the documents Bob had prepared. The patent filing, the copyright registration, the certified mail receipts, copies of all 14 contracts with Section 8C highlighted in yellow, a complete printout of the Sweeney Protocol's technical documentation, every page watermarked with my name and patent number, and one additional document, a letter of intent for Sweeney Strategic LLC, offering independent consulting services to any government agency seeking continuity on defense logistics vetting. I put everything in the old leather briefcase, the one with the brass clasps. Then I set Harold's silver pen in the breast pocket of my suit jacket. Monday, October 27th. 10 a.m. Exactly. I walked into Ridgemont Defense Solutions for the first time in 13 days. Same lobby, same security desk, same marble floors that Martha once said made the place feel like a mausoleum, pretending to be an office. The guard at the desk looked up. His name was Frank. He'd worked there almost as long as I had. Mr. Sweeney, good to see you, sir. Good to see you, Frank. He didn't ask me to sign in. He just handed me a visitor badge and nodded toward the elevator. 6th floor, boardroom. I rode the elevator alone, watched the numbers tick. 3, 4, 5, 6. The doors opened. The boardroom at Ridgemont is a cathedral of corporate ambition. 20-foot mahogany table, polished so dark you could see your reflection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. 12 leather chairs. Frosted glass walls etched with the company logo. Every chair was full except 2. One at the head of the table, where Harold Whitfield sat with his hands folded and his eyes on the wood grain. He looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. His polo shirt was wrinkled. No golf cleats today. No cigar. The other empty chair was halfway down the table. There was a nameplate in front of it. Small. Brass. It read, Mr. Sweeney, Consulting Party. Tyler was seated 3 chairs to Harold's left. His designer haircut was still perfect, but his jaw was tight, and his fingers were laced together on the table, like he was physically holding himself in his chair. The protein shake confidence was gone, replaced by something I recognized from my Navy years. The look of a junior officer who just realized the exercise was live fire. Mark Taylor sat directly across from Tyler. He had a stack of folders in front of him that was almost comical in its height. Next to him was a woman I didn't recognize. Ridgemont's outside IP counsel. She had the look of someone who'd been awake since Friday. The other 5 seats held board members. I knew all of them. Richard Graves, Patricia Walsh, Donald Beck, James Morrow, Arthur Caldwell. They'd been at every annual meeting for the last 15 years. Every one of them had shaken my hand at company dinners. Every one of them had signed off on the contracts that had my name in Section 8C, and there were 3 more board members present by conference phone. The speaker sat in the center of the table like a black spider. I sat down, set my briefcase on the floor, didn't open it yet, folded my hands on the mahogany the same way Harold had. Waited. Mark Taylor cleared his throat. Cliff, thank you for coming. I'll be direct. Since your departure on October 14th, Ridgemont has received formal notices of non-compliance from the Department of Defense on 6 of our 14 active procurement contracts. The notices cite Section 8C, the key personnel clause, and the absence of a mandated 90-day interpersonal transition for the designated vetting officer. He paused. That's you. I'm aware of what Section 8C says, Mark. I helped negotiate that language. Additionally, we've been informed that the vetting algorithm integrated into our compliance process, the system known internally as the Sweeney Protocol, is registered intellectual property under U.S. patent application. Number 8, 1,472,639 filed in your personal name, and that you have formally revoked our license to utilize it. That's correct. We don't own the vetting algorithm, Tyler. Mark turned to face him. The sentence landed like a brick on glass. And the Pentagon won't talk to the software. They'll only talk to Cliff. Tyler leaned forward. That bluster muscle in his jaw was working overtime. This is a negotiation tactic. He's trying to leverage his way back into a role that no longer exists. We can develop a new algorithm. We can assign new personnel. This is exactly the kind of legacy dependency I was hired to eliminate. Nobody responded. Not one person in that room backed him up. The silence had weight. It had mass. It sat on Tyler's shoulders like a wet wool blanket. I opened my briefcase, set the folders on the table one at a time. The patent filing, the copyright registration, the certified mail receipt with the date stamp from October 15th, the 14 contracts with Section 8C highlighted, and the Sweeney Protocol documentation, each page bearing the watermark, property of Clifford A. Sweeney. I slid the stack to the center of the table. Then I leaned forward, just slightly, the way you lean forward when you want someone to hear you clearly without raising your voice. Relationships aren't data points, Tyler. They're promises, and I'm the only one who kept them. Tyler opened his mouth. Harold Whitfield raised his hand. One hand, palm out. The room went silent. That's enough. Harold's voice was rough, quiet. The voice of a man who'd built a company from a single government contract and a handshake in 1971 and was now watching his grandson burn it to the foundation. Cliff, what are your terms? I don't have terms for Ridgemont, Harold. I'm not coming back. The words landed. Harold closed his eyes for a full second. I've incorporated my own consultancy, Sweeney Strategic LLC. I'm not soliciting any of your clients. I don't need to. But when the Pentagon comes looking for continuity on their vetting requirements, and they will, I'll be available, independently. You're taking my contracts. Tyler's voice cracked on the word contracts. They were never your contracts, Tyler. They were relationships. And you can't put a relationship in a CRM. Patricia Walsh, the longest-serving board member, leaned back in her chair and looked at Harold. Harold, I'm going to say this plainly. Your grandson terminated the single most critical employee in this company without consulting the board, without reviewing the contract language, without conducting an IP audit, and without any understanding of federal procurement law. We are now facing potential loss of $890 million in annual recurring revenue. I move to remove Tyler Whitfield from his position as Vice President of Digital Transformation, effective immediately. Seconded, said Donald Beck. Harold stared at the table. His hand found his forehead. He rubbed it once, twice. Then he looked at Tyler, and what I saw in his face wasn't anger. It was grief. The grief of a man who let family cloud his business judgment and knew it, and knew the whole room knew it. All in favor. 8 voices, one by one, including the 3 on the conference phone. Aye. 8-0. Tyler stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the credenza. You can't do this. Granddad, tell them. Tell them this is my vision. Tell them. Harold looked at his grandson. I let family cloud my judgment, Tyler, and it may have cost us everything. He turned to the board. The motion passes unanimously. Mark, please handle the transition. Tyler looked around the room. He looked at Mark Taylor, who was already organizing paperwork. He looked at Patricia Walsh, who met his gaze without blinking. He looked at me. I didn't look away. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just looked at him the way I've looked at 1,000 problems in my life. Calmly, directly, with nothing to prove. Security appeared at the boardroom door. 2 guards, the same 2 who had watched me walk out 13 days earlier with my briefcase and my dignity. Tyler walked out between them. His manicured fingers were shaking. He didn't look back. The museum was officially reopened. Harold caught me in the hallway afterward. He looked small in a way I'd never seen. 78 years old, and shrinking in his own building. Cliff, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have protected what you built. I took the silver pen out of my pocket. The one he'd given me 15 years ago. I held it out to him. Keep it, Harold. I've got my own now. He looked at the pen, then at me. His eyes were wet. I walked out of that building for the second time in 2 weeks. This time, I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs. All 6 flights. 1 step at a time. The way you leave a place you spent 24 years building. Not running. Walking. With your briefcase in one hand and your future in the other. The collapse took 8 months. Within 42 days of my departure, 6 contracts were flagged. Within 90 days, 11 of the 14 procurement officers had formally requested continuity of service with the named key personnel. With me, through Sweeney Strategic LLC, $640 million in defense contracts migrated to my consultancy within the fiscal year. Ridgemont's annual recurring revenue dropped 72% in 8 months. Tyler's $12 million Project Aegis platform was quietly decommissioned in March. The AI-driven CRM that was supposed to replace handshakes and phone calls was boxed up and written off as a failed capital expenditure. Tyler Whitfield moved to San Francisco. Last I heard, he was working at a venture capital firm, advising startups on digital transformation. I'm sure his slides are beautiful. Harold retired, for real this time. The board brought in outside leadership. They called me once to discuss a potential partnership. I listened politely. I said I'd think about it. I'm still thinking. My office now is a small suite in a building on Congress Avenue. Leather chairs, oak desk, a window that overlooks a quiet street with live oaks. It smells like old leather and good coffee. On the wall behind my desk is a framed copy of Patent Number 8,472,639. Next to it is a photo of Martha and Jackson at his high school graduation, both of them laughing at something I'd said that I can't remember anymore. On a shelf by the door is a Rolodex. Same one. Same cards. 14 names. $640 million in trust. Rex sleeps under my desk now. He likes the rug. Last month, I drove to College Station for Jackson's commissioning ceremony. He walked across that stage in his uniform, tall and straight, and I was in the 3rd row. Not on a plane. Not in a cab. Not on a phone call with the Pentagon. 3rd row, center seat, watching my son become an officer in the United States Navy. He found me afterward, still in his dress whites. He shook my hand, and then he pulled me into a hug, which is not standard military protocol, but is absolutely standard Jackson protocol. You made it, Dad. Wouldn't have missed it, Jack. He stepped back and looked at me. That grin. Martha's grin. You seem different these days. Like you're finally here. I am. That night I sat on my back deck with 3 fingers of Blanton's and Rex at my feet, and the Texas sky spread out above me like it had nowhere else to be. My phone sat on the arm of my chair. It didn't buzz. Nobody needed me to be anywhere else. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It arrives quietly, with calm hands and a steady resolve. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and ring that notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.